Hey, this is Scott Clements, your Central Florida Regional Head Referee for Central Florida Robotics. So if you are a member of the Central Florida Robotics First Lego League, you're in luck. This is the place you want to be. I'm basically going to try to do a couple of super quick episodes throughout the season to familiarize you with a specific rule and maybe a specific mission, just to make sure you're headed in the right direction. So if you're a new team to the First Lego League, this will be really great for you to kind of get an idea and really bite into what's going on. If you're a veteran team, you've been around, a lot of this will be old information for you, but you're welcome, obviously, to check it out too. So I'm out here on the centralfloridarobotics.org website. I don't know if you've had a chance to get out there. If you haven't, it's a great website. It's got all the information you need to know about First Lego League in Central Florida. And I'll take you over here to our program staff. And these are all your staff for the Central Florida Robotics First Lego League. And here I am right here, your regional head ref. So that's me. These are all the great people that are going to help you out this season to make sure you have a great season. All right, so let's dive in here. What I usually do is I'll hit Google and go search for First Into Orbit. That's the game this year, obviously. And this first link that comes up should be firstinspires.org resource link. If we click on that, it's going to take us right here. Now, if you haven't been here, a lot of great information here too. So definitely go check out this link on firstinspires.org. What we're going to deal with is the challenge guide. The challenge is a summary. It's a short, quick 3 or 4 page document. What we want is the full challenge guide, which spells out all the rules and everything you're going to need to know. And if you look at this, you'll see it has everything you need to know about core values, project in depth, etc., etc. We care about the robot game here on page 19. So you can see here, let me zoom in a little bit. These are all your rules and definitions and everything you're going to need to know. So if you hear us refer to a rule or something, like if we said, hey, DO4 robot, that's the rule we're referring to there. So we're going to talk a little bit about base just to get started, which I know is a very simple concept, but this is base. This is where you can handle your robot. This is where you're allowed to change attachments. This is where you're allowed to load mission models and do things like that. Okay, so base is defined by this semicircle that's on your mat in the corner. You'll see it. And up to the 2x4 walls or the wooden walls, whatever they have there. And that's where it stops, okay, is at the inner edge of those 2x4s. I think that has that over here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. You can see right here. It says it extends southwest from the outside of the thin curved line, which is this, right, to the corner walls. So here's the walls, the inside edge of those walls. So if we had scrolled down, that rule was up here. If we scroll down here, I'm going to talk about R13 just real quick, which is launching. When you launch your robot, that's what we just discussed, is when everything's ready, it's completely in base, you push the button and off it goes, right? Now, so this says it has to be completely in base and measuring no taller than 12 inches, right? So there is a vertical volume to base. It's not just those lines we discussed, okay? So it has to be, your entire robot has to be completely within base before you can send it out. And I think it's also important to note that you can go on the last word. If you read this rule, these rules are your friends. You can actually send your robot out. If they say 3, 2, 1, Lego, right? You don't have to wait till the word Lego is done. You can start the second they start saying right when they start saying Lego, or if it's ready, set, go, you would go as they start to say go, right? So there's your R13 launching. All right, and I'm going to go into a little more depth in that. Hang on, let me get this little thing I made here. All right, so imagine this is base, right? There's our semicircle going around there. And we have our pieces of wood, the walls, right? Here's our walls. Just want to make sure you understand that if I click here and you look over here while I click over there, you'll see the red flashing line. That is where base ends, right? It doesn't extend over the pieces of wood, okay? So base ends right there. We see this a lot out on the field, and it can be a problem if you didn't know this and something's hanging over. So let's just say for a second that we have our little robot here, right? And we've bumped it right up against the wall before we launch. that's fine. That's a fair launch. Your robot's against the wall. It's completely in base. It obviously doesn't extend out past the outer side of this curved line, and it doesn't extend past that piece of wood, right? So that's all good. Now, let's turn our robot around, and you can see the robot itself is well within base, right? It's got space over here all the way, including this black line. That's part of base. It's well within base. Now these cables would hang out over the top of that 2x4. We see a lot of teams do this, and if this happens, your robot is out of base. If any tool extends out over the 2x4s, that is out of base. We can't let you launch your robot. So be really careful when you're designing your robot and planning that to tie these cables in tight, and just make sure that as you launch your robot, nothing extends out past base, or the refs aren't going to be able to let you launch that robot, and that's super sad. All right. So now let's talk about a mission here. We're going to start right in with mission 1. We'll just take them in order here. And this will be the end of the video once we get through with mission 1. So basically what you're going to see on all of these missions is you'll see the description of the mission over here on the left, and then you'll see this technically speaking side. The technically speaking side is what you actually have to do to get the score. This side basically explains it. This side is the exact scoring requirements. Okay, and you can see in green that that's exactly what we have to do to score, and the asterisks mean that the ref has to have actually seen you do it in this specific way, all right, to get the points. So let's look at mission 1, space travel. Start each payload clearly rolling down the space travel ramp. So if we can get those payloads to roll down the ramp, then that we need to see that in order for you to score. And for each roll, the cart must be independent by the time it reaches the first track connection. So this is that first track connection they're showing you here. So by the time the payload gets to here, right, nothing can be touched anymore. No robot, no anything. It has to be all on its own heading down the ramp, right? Okay, so let's say, can you take your robot and place it down at the end of the ramp over here somewhere and get your points? No, because number one, it did not start by clearly rolling down the ramp, and number two, it was not independent at this line, right? So keep that in mind. It's also important to note down here that as long as your cart rolls independently past that first track connection, it's okay if it doesn't roll all the way. So, you know, if it started rolling, it got here and it's rolling independently by the time it gets to this first point and it fell off, you should still get your points. If it only makes it down to here, you should still get your points, right? So make sure you know the rules. You would know that. If a ref tried to not give you those points, you could say, hey, look at this rule right here, and I'm sure they would give it to you. So you can see you can get 22 for the vehicle payload, 14 for the supply payload, 10 for the crew payload, which is how you get these possible scores. If you don't get any, it's 0. If you get just the payload, it's 10. If you get just the supply, it's 14. Just the vehicle, it's 22. If we added the crew and the supply payload, you can get, you know, your 24. And so these are all the different combos depending on how many you send down the ramp. So that's mission 1. Tune in next time. We'll talk about mission 2 and hit on another rule. So good luck this season. I really hope you guys have a lot of fun, and give me an email if you guys need anything or have any questions at all. Be happy to answer them. All right, have fun.